I want to understand in terms of Medicare 24, how did a bidder whose sole director, namely Cat Matlala, has a criminal record for theft and who was already implicated in procurement fraud as far back as Tembisa in May 2023, pass through your bid chair, evaluation and adjudication committees without any red flags being raised? And does SAPS not even conduct basic criminal or background checks on its suppliers?
In the procurement process, no, we don't do that. There are instances where there are commodities where we run background checks, and for instance, in the IT environment, we do that. The end user will indicate to us if we have to do that. In this instance, no, they were not done.
For a 360 million rand contract, you don't check who you're dealing with?
We didn't do it, Chair. In the procurement process, this normally gets done by the end user.
No, but I don't care about the end user. I care about supply chain management, because Auditor General shows us that in the past financial year, SAPS had over 650 million rand irregular expenditure. You're telling me that you didn't do criminal record checks on Cat Matlala?
No, we didn't. I do not.
General, I want to move in terms of the same matter. There's a criminal case at the moment that's open in Brooklyn, in Pretoria. I've got the case number here, for forged signatures that were used during pre-employment medical screening by Medicare 24 of SAPS recruits. Can you guarantee to us today that every recruit that they signed off on actually did go through the relevant assessment? Or were they basically certifying that those assessments were fraudulent?
I cannot vouch on that. I do not get involved in the operations.
But you said earlier that there was that the services were rendered.
Honorable Chair, the end user certified the payment, indicating that they received the service. If there was any service failure, I am not privy to that, particularly what the honorable member is picking up now. But that was never raised with me. It's the first time that I hear about it.
That's very interesting, because the National Commissioner knows about it. You're part of the national management. In other words, so if forged medical authorizations were issued, do you understand that you as the head of supply chain, you are the gateway of forged medical authorizations? Let me explain. Is it not entirely possible that applicants with disqualifying medical conditions, including substance abuse, were then incorrectly passed as fit for duty?
Honorable Chair, that process is managed by the end user, and the end user is the one that makes sure that the quality of the evaluation is in line with what they have in their service level agreement and the contract.
General, stop dancing. Chair, no, this witness is dancing around.
No.
I'm not interested in the end user, General. Hear me today. I said this to you 2 weeks ago.
Join the dance or the chorus.
Yes. I said this to you 2 weeks ago in the Portfolio Committee as well. Take responsibility for your division. You are the gateway for corruption at the moment, whether it's willingly or not. This isn't an oversight. It's 360 million rand. Do you know how many detectives we could have empowered with that money? How many dogs we could have bought for K9 unit? Your irregular expenditure increased with 140% in 1 year. The way you've been describing your division today, SAPS sounds like heaven. You currently, as the South African Police Service, have hundreds of members that are stuck on prolonged sick leave because of the required medical reports that were never delivered. Again, Medicare 24. These officers continue to draw full salaries but cannot return to duty, and their posts cannot be filled. How do you justify saying that there was no waste? Similar to the question that the Honourable Nomvalo asked you previously.
Honourable Chair, as I've indicated, the end user only pays for the services that were rendered. Where there were no services rendered, The end user has an obligation in terms of PFMA. The budget is with them. They manage the operations to ensure that they're paying for the services that were not rendered. I have indicated that when they raised the issues of performance, we dealt with those issues with Medicare. If Medicare still operated and we had reasonable grounds in terms of performance to cancel the contract based on non-performance, we would have done that.
But you haven't, and they have non-performed, General.
But
I'm interrupting you again because you're talking about the end user. I'm not interested in the end user. You allowed Medicare into the police. You, no one else. You. The buck stops with you. Honorable Breitenbach asked you earlier, every member has asked you so far, where does the buck stop? Maybe not using the specific word. You keep going to the end user. I'm not interested in the end user. The point is that the wrong service wouldn't have been rendered did you not allow Medicare entrance into the South African Police Service. I want to ask you the next question. 2 weeks ago in the committee, I asked you, how is it possible that your, whether it's the evaluation committee or the adjudication committee, could have slipped up so badly? Your response to me said that sometimes the people on these committees aren't competent. That's also found in the internal audit findings. Do you remember that response?
I remember making that response, but with the specifics to this one, the appointment of the suppliers explicitly indicate that they were competent. I do have the record, and I will make that record available.
But you didn't go and check that they were actually competent, because if I look at the Auditor General report and I look at the internal audit report, they were flagged significantly for not being correct. Now you can say it could be frustrating to have to go and check every single one, but 360 million rand, it's more than half of the police's irregular expenditure over the last financial year. How do you explain that? And don't go to the end user.
I have to indicate, Honourable Chair, that we rely on, and I'm going to repeat it again, we rely on the judgment of the divisional commissioners that appoint these people to determine whether these people are competent to do the work that they're supposed to. That determination is done there, and it is recommended to me. It would be, I do not have the competence to go and check whether those people are competent in their work.
General, I'm sorry, again, then we can close the bid evaluation committee and we can close the bid adjudication committee, and we can ask all the DivComs to come and sit there and decide. And you're right, you don't have the competence. The entire team doesn't have the competence. This is extremely embarrassing. Do you understand that a large amount of the fruitless, let me say it like this, over 10% of irregular expenditure over the last 3 years in the South African Police Service is Medicare 24. You want to tell me that you are the divisional commissioner, one of the highest ranking police members in the country, and you didn't vet the sole director, someone previously accused of cash in transit heists, armed robbery, and the list goes on for over 2.5 decades. And he manages to become a major supplier of services to the police. Explain. And don't go to the end user.
Honourable Chair, the procurement process that's approved in the South African Police Service does not make pronouncement for security checking of the suppliers. I have indicated that there are instances where we have done that, where we are looking at security of information and any other reasonable or any other risks that we have identified in the process. In this instance, it wasn't done.
So you've basically breached the South African Police Service. You're a breach. That's what you're saying. Your office is a breach to the security of the South African Police Service. Don't look at the chair.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, it's quite simple. You allowed a criminal to get a 360 million rand contract in the South African Police Service.
It's not allowing. It's not true.
You did. How else?
No,
You didn't vet him. He was flagged. He didn't comply with the majority of the relevant things he was meant to comply with. That was found in 2 different audits. There were fraudulent signatures on medical certificates. So, General, you allowed it. Whether willingly or not, you allowed it.
No.
And it's not the committee. The
It's
buck
not
stops
allowing.
with you.
Honorable Chair, I would like to respond to that we did not allow. I have indicated that the adjudication committee looked at the information at their disposal. I have to concede that irregularities were picked up. It is not a deliberate act that we wanted that company to come and operate in the South African Police Service. The process that was followed, in fact, if you look at the process was correct, but there are steps in the process that were not done correctly, which...
Then the process wasn't correct. I'm sorry, General, you keep on telling us about processes. You even gave us a printout. So you don't need to repeat it again. And I'm sorry if I come across rude. The point is just, you can say you didn't allow it, whether it was willing or not willing, you gave access. You and your team allowed a man like Cat Matlala to get access to the South African Police Service. Answer me this. Which specific evaluation criteria did Medicare 24 fail to meet?
According to the evaluation report that we received, none. According to the internal audit, they have picked up that from the mandatory documents, they did not meet some of the mandatory requirements and they pulled through.
So the fact that that latter report that you spoke of now wasn't just some, it's an entire list, indicates things that they didn't comply with. Doesn't that show that whether willingly or not, you allowed Cat Matlala to become part of the furniture at the South African Police Service Management Office?
I would not vouch, I would not say willingly allowed Cat Matlala to come into...
No, I said willingly or unwillingly. You allowed him.
The choice of the word allow, we adjudicated, and it has turned out that the evaluation was flawed.
Let's say it like this, you left the door open. Who authorized the shortening of the advertising period?
No one.
Why was it shortened then?
It was an administrative error from my people, and they will be disciplined with regards to that.
Who are you going to fire?
We do know who advertised the tenders within the process.
No, name them. Tell us the name.
It is, I don't have the name here with me.
You don't have the name for the person that extended it, can't be.
No, there's no one that extended anything. They just advertised it for 20 days instead of 21, which is an administrative error.
Who's being held responsible, General? That's my question.
We will have indicated, Honorable Chair, that National Commissioner has indicated that we should put everything in abeyance until the forensic audit report is completed. Once that is completed, everyone that has been listed to have flaunted the processes will be disciplined.
So all of them are still in their positions a year later, and the person that did that, potentially involved in corruption, is still in his or her position. What was the emergency that justified breaking Treasury regulations for that specific tender? And you should know better because you're from Treasury.
There wasn't any emergency. I have indicated that it was an error. No one authorized for shortening of the tender process from 21 days to 20 days.
And what disciplinary steps have been taken against anyone regarding this entire process?
I've indicated, Honorable Chair.
Don't go back to the forensic investigation, General. You keep doing that.
It is what it is, Honorable Member.
No, but it's not. I mean, even News 24 were able to complete something in less than a month, and it was accurate. It's your department. Everything does not need a forensic investigation. It's like the new buzzword. If something goes wrong, hey, we need to forensically investigate. 3 years later, we've forgotten about it and no one's fired. What have you done? Have you laid charges against anyone?
I have not laid charges against...
Has anyone pocketed from this?
I have no knowledge of that.
So how on earth, why would Cat Matlala want to do business with SAPS?
Any supplier that looks at opportunities in any government would do that. What motivated him to do business with SAPS is unknown to me.
No, but you see, the reason I ask this is this. You know, you disregarded, SAPS disregarded capable bidders, let's list them, Netcare, Metropolitan, Alexander Forbes, to name but a few, not any of the small players, but Medicare 24, Cat Matlala's guys, they get in. Explain it. It doesn't make sense. General, I'm telling you now, and I said this to you in the portfolio committee, somewhere in that office of yours, someone is pocketing. I'll escape.
Honorable Chair, I have no knowledge of that. If the forensic audits pick up such anomalies, we will definitely deal with. The National Commissioner, I believe he will make sure that the process is expedited so that we can find finality to this process.
You testified that these processes and requirements exist to ensure that entities are not unfairly disqualified, correct?
Correct.
So please explain to us, how was it fair that the bigger companies that I mentioned were actually disqualified despite having met all the requirements?
The companies that were disqualified were at the mandatory point. The report indicates clearly, if we can go back to the report. The reports clearly indicate what are the reasons for the bidders to have been disqualified, and they were disqualified based on those reasons. Big or small, if there is something that disqualifies you as a bidder, we will disqualify you.
But there were 10 companies in total that fulfilled all the requirements.
That's right. In terms of price, the supplier bid at the cheapest price.
Without fulfilling the relevant requirements, because you didn't check.
Having been evaluated based on the report that was submitted.
No, having
I
been
would have to
wrongly
repeat
evaluated.
that.
You didn't evaluate
No,
them.
having been wrongly evaluated, yes.
According to your own testimony, there were multiple processes, checks, due diligence mechanisms in place to ensure proper oversight. Is that correct, General? Do you still feel that way?
Correct.
Really?
Correct. The signatures are attached to the reports to indicate that those checks were done.
So if those checks were done, let me just get my numbers in front of me. How is it possible, you explain this to me, that 2022-23, you had 289.7 million rands worth of irregular expenditure. 23-24, 278.8 million rands worth of expenditure. Cherry on top, 24-25, times it by 3, 667.8 million rands worth of irregular expenditure. That is just over 3 billion rand. 3 billion rand. How is it possible? You said earlier that once you are done with the South African Police Service, you would like for contracts not to be cancelled, because things need to be done right. This is showing the opposite in terms of irregular expenditure. It's getting worse. It's not getting better while you're there.
Sure. Honorable Chair, let me respond this way. The tenders that were evaluated, we've got a mixture of tenders that were published and tenders that were evaluated. Tenders that were, when I got into South African Police Service in 2023, I developed a new procurement policy, and that's the procurement policy that is running now. Prior to that, there was another procurement policy. But tenders that are evaluated, even last year or years thereafter, were advertised and only concluded in those financial year where they were. And there were irregularities that were picked up either at the advertisement point or at the evaluation point. What we have indicated is we have found that the bid evaluation process has flaws in it. We acknowledge that. I have not disputed that. And what we are saying is that we needed to have another layer to make sure that the evaluation processes are not at the level where they are.
General.
And that's where we are doing the probity.
You said that at the portfolio committee. I don't buy another layer, you need another management. I'm telling you now that you can add another 10 layers. It won't change the reality we're facing here. This is blatant corruption. The fact that Medicare 24 was reported, you testified that these processes and requirements exist to ensure that entities are not unqualified or unfairly disqualified. That's what we spoke about earlier. Despite all of this, we ended up with a shell company, specifically Medicare 24. So how is it possible that through all of this due diligence that still happened? Are you telling me that an external journalist, actually several journalists, had greater insight into the integrity of your own internal process than what you did? I mean, if all of us can see this, if all of us in here see this, if every single different political party sees this, you must be blind.
Majority of the things that have been indicated on the process were indicated in the media after the internal audit process had
You're
taken
missing
place.
the point. I'm not interested. That's back to the end user, General.
No, I hear what you're saying. Honorable Chair, in terms of the audit findings that, may I